for this next game or this next series as we go into game number 1 against 2 teammates. We're going to be starting up here on the top right-hand side of the map. From the blue, we have from Team Litecoin, it's Hellraiser.
His teammate in the bottom left-hand side is ShaDoWn.
You know, as they say, Wardy, from the Litecoin comes the shadow. No. We're going to be moving into this good old PvP on Jagannatha, and I think one of my favorite things about PvP these days is that I do feel like one of the things I appreciate about PvP as a matchup is that I do feel like while there are a lot of gotchas, that are very stressful to play, but I do feel like there's a lot of diversity in terms of what you can do. There's a lot of things that you can throw at your opponent, and a lot of things to account for.
Yeah, no, you're very right, and I think it's one of the reasons this matchup is so cool lately, because any game can start off roughly the same and then suddenly be like, haha, extra gates, haha, it's a Twilight or Stargate. Is there anything that isn't like viable in PvP nowadays? Ooh, not really, right?
That's a good question. I guess
without being like super weird about it, because I know I'm sure you can find
without
something.
Being like,
yes.
Well, can you rush a warp prism and cannon rush with the warp prism? Like, yes.
Yeah.
Besides things like that, I think pretty much everything goes. Like, I actually think there's still even though we don't see it, it's like definitely fallen out of the meta. Like, there is still actually a place for the big, heavy adept style and stuff that kind of actually does pretty well against, you know, just like a pure stalker opening until like disruptors and things like that get out. There's place for the DTs, there's place for the Stargate openings, there's place for like fast robo, there's blink plays. It's what makes, I would say, PvP very fun to watch, but very stressful to play, because imagine you're a player, right? Imagine you're not like a professional player especially, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go practice TVZ, right? TVZ definitely has some builder diversity. We've even seen a bit of it today. But like for the most part, if you play like 50 TVZs, you're probably gonna play like maybe like 3 types of games for the most part, 3 or 4. PvP, you play it and you're like, all right, I'm gonna play 50 games, and you probably play like 20 different like 20 different ways that PvP could happen. It's so hard to get consistent practice like one thing versus another.
It's very true, and especially when you got to mix your own builds up as well, and then you got to play versus other things. It is kind of crazy, and that's why I feel like PvP almost rounds out to like who has just a better sense of the game in general, because it has to be a bit more freestyle than written in stone practice, right?
Yeah,
at least the early game, obviously. So. Like, you get to the mid game and it does calm down a little bit, but there's so many ways the early game changes. You got to be so on top of it.
Yeah, and just to quickly mention, as we have the Lucene Phoenix coming in, there was an Oracle first opening, but it gets scattered by Lucene Phoenix. And we had a 3-sentry opening over here from ShaDoWn. He has been foregoing his tech for quite a bit of time, now only just now adding on that Twilight Council, but got up a shield battery to help cover against like the single Oracle opening. So he'll have all of his units positioned over in the natural to deal with the Oracle there. And the shield battery, oh, actually, hold on, wait, where is that shield battery? Oh, the shield battery is just in his natural, so does have to be a bit wary in the main base, but has some stalkers planted there now.
Here comes the Oracle from Hellraiser, gets turned around in an instant, just trying to pick up a bit of info, damage, whatever you can find. Hellraiser's Twilight going to be done, so he will not be far behind on the blink. And he will start up that forge as well, so he's already thinking about going into that +1 upgrade. Oracle does find its way in for 3 probes, not bad.
Oracle, that's not a safe spot. He was microing the adepts, but the stalkers were also not being micro because he was focusing on the adepts.
Yeah, that was a shame the Oracle didn't get one more kill at the end there. Like, initially he didn't deserve, but then he kind of did, so yeah. A little bit of chaos already at the start of the game, a little bit of getting crazy, and Hellraiser just 4 workers up, +1 started. I mean, it's already a little advantageous. He starts a cannon. He's a little afraid about what's happening here.
Yeah, I think what happened is that he came in and he was like, all you have is a Twilight Council. And yeah, you have something researching, but like, there's not actually a whole lot over here. So I think he is just kind of covering his bases right now, which maybe not the worst idea.
It's not bad because, to be fair, ShaDoWn's going to be down an upgrade, right? So Hellraiser can kind of afford a cannon for safety. Maybe a catches like a DT running in at the front or so, you know, unless the Robo was proxied too or something. You know what I mean? Like, it actually does do a lot of like covering of possibilities. So I don't mind it for having the information and knowing that your opponent only has that one tech structure. Yeah, why not? Both end up going to 3 bases, of course, now, and of course it is just going to be Blink against Blink. I just don't know where ShaDoWn is going. I always get a little bit stuck in this situation in PvP because I feel like so often some players are just like, I'm not going to make my forge. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, I'm just not going to make my forge. I'm like, yeah, but why aren't you going to make your forge? And like, I'm just not going to make it. Why are we making a forge? You know, like, what part of this game from ShaDoWn has scared him into not getting a forge at any stage when Hellraiser was able to put his down so long ago?
So I do think that the Stalker production was ramped up a little bit sooner here for ShaDoWn, and you can kind of see it's not a massive difference, but it's the fact that he has one more Stalker and also has all the sentries over here. Although the Guardian Shield gets activated really late, I do think that kind of hurts his chances at making this work. But now he has Blink finished up before Hellraiser does. He's trying to hit this timing using that Guardian Shield, using that Blink upgrade. Now Blink is finished up over here for Hellraiser, but the third base, he's gonna I think he should be able to defend it now that he's working another round of Stalkers. This gets a little bit tricky. It comes down to micro.
+1 ready soon, not ready yet. I mean, if you get the third base, fair enough, ShaDoWn. That's why you didn't build your forge. It's just make sure you get that third base, because if not, you're behind in a pretty major way for the, something that lasts the rest of the game, really. Hellraiser is going to come through, push this back, even an additional Stalker kill for him at the end. This did not work out for ShaDoWn. He takes an 8-worker lead right now because he's obviously been able to utilize his third base while his opponent has not. So that's a positive, but obviously the +1 difference goes a long way, and Hellraiser, as long as he can afford +2 at some point soon, will take an advantage back on that as well. So he'll just kind of stay in the lead in that regard.
What? Oh my god. Okay, the Oracle surviving is, I don't want to say it's like a massive deal, but it is really helpful to have that Oracle alive. And remember, the sentry's committed to that Blink Stalker attack. So ShaDoWn warps in another sentry over here, but he needs to keep that sentry alive. But he has to use the energy for force fields and just trying to make sure he doesn't die over here, because he kind of needs to survive. He's lost a lot of his units. And even beyond all of this, ShaDoWn is completely in the dark, right? He has no way of being out on the map and knowing what's going on outside of, I don't know, using like a proxy pylon to try and warp in some adepts and shade around.
Yeah, he's in a tough spot. Hellraiser's going to keep with this pressure, and I love it. There's no battery on this third base yet, so why the heck not? You've got the +1 advantage. Here come the extra Stalkers moving on through, and Hellraiser is just going to chunk down these Stalkers, making his way on top of this. Super Battery does go off in the end, and that's going to be Hellraiser's sign to just back away. No point trading into that. He knows it. Yeah, Stasis in the main was actually pretty beautiful during this as well, huh? So Hellraiser just kind of all over right now. And love that this Oracle comes back in after so long in this game and actually has an influence.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these Stalkers over here for Hellraiser are pretty low on the hit points and everything, but they've regenerated a lot of their shields. Zealous being warped in, I really do like as a choice to just absorb some of the damage, because right now ShaDoWn is just trying to survive. He's trying to make use of some of the probes he had earlier on, but as we end up seeing, the shield battery's out of energy. There's no more shield battery overcharge. The Stalkers are all just going out. The shield battery gets focus fired down, and even with more units being warped in, it's looking pretty tough, but he does get that Immortal out. The problem is, at the end of the day, +2 weapons is almost finished up over here. Hellraiser is going to take an upgrade lead yet again and has a 4th base all out. It feels like Hellraiser has transition points, and ShaDoWn is just, his transition point is surviving to the next point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not going to be, there's just not going to be anything for ShaDoWn. Like, yeah, congratulations, you've got charge. Now show me an amount of Zealots that's truly going to be scary to Hellraiser. Well, he just can't make them. He just doesn't have the money right now, so... And then, they're going to be matched by the Zealots of Hellraiser 2 soon. Then the Temple Archive is coming up for Hellraiser. +2 is here. You can just go down the checklist of advantages you can have in PvP. Base advantage, tick. Upgrade advantage, tick. Zealot and Stalker count, yeah, tick that one off too. Tech, yep, Archons. Everything's just in Hellraiser's favor. And ShaDoWn, I mean, how do you get back? The thing is, he's got nothing set up to make a comeback in the game. The best thing he's got is the possibility of, like, Zealot run-bys. But I believe he's building pylon top side to be able to say, right, you know what, let's get some run-bys in. because that's all he's got. It's not like he's got DTs raring to go. He needs a way to slow Hellraiser down big time.
Yeah, I think that is going to be the tough ask over here. And I guess maybe something that like in PvP you can try to do is you just get to the point where you have enough of those Archons and stuff that are mixed in, and then you take a fight at like an advantageous angle, or if you go for a faster tech up into like disruptors or something, that could be nice. Or even just like a warp prism to try and put on some pressure, start warping in the main base while your opponent starts getting spread out. But this is going to lead to a very awkward situation because all the zealots are basically trapped in over here. Oh, the recall. I actually really like that move. That was a great move right there.
I mean, that was a great way to get in and get some damage done. So yeah, fantastic. 10 out of 10. We're still in the situation where Hellraiser has 30 army supply more, and now he's coming across the map to press that issue as well. And let's see what ShaDoWn can come up with, because he needs some magic right now, Fear Dragon. He needs one of those PvP fights where we're left at the end yelling, "What just happened?" Because otherwise, this is just going to be Hellraiser just steamrolling straight through his army.
Yeah, this is going to be a very tough ask. A single sentry in over here. I don't even know if it has energy for a Guardian Shield. Shield Battery Overcharge can help out quite a bit, especially with Archons in the mix, but it just gets popped so early here, Wardy. I think, yeah, Shield Battery Overcharge is going to expire before the cannons even get up.
Yep. I mean, the only thing, right, is if you can just about hold on, get to that Robobane Disruptors. But like you say, what keeps you alive for that long? Well, Archon's getting stuck in the back from Hellraiser, not taking a proper fight. Upgrades obviously became even here as well. Now all these Archons get to fight, and they're going to make a huge difference on the Zealots. The start of the fight sucked from Hellraiser. The rest of this fight is getting a bit better. Still difficult, though. His Zealot's getting choked up a little bit. And now you can see that ShaDoWn's Archon's not able to quite join the fight properly. Going to kill one pylon. That's not going to stop the warping of Zealots, though, and maybe the reinforcements are going to push this back. Reinforcements need to come in from Hellraiser. A few Zealots start to trickle forward, but he's about to lose his last Archon as well, so there goes his splash. But maybe it's just too late because he's overwhelming. And yeah, I think it is. Wow, I mean, almost actually kind of happened for ShaDoWn, right? Like, he was almost there. Disruptors producing. He just needed that little bit of something extra, and maybe would have been yelling about one of those fights. That's like, what just happened?
Yeah, I do think, and maybe it was just because there was, you get very locked up in the micro of all those fights, because PvP is one of those matchups where if you lose the main army engagement, like, things actually just can snowball so quickly. You need to be paying attention to your the micro and all that stuff. Sometimes actually over the macro, but I do think as soon as the reinforcements arrive, because I think because Hellraiser was busy with the micro there, making sure that like all the units are well positioned, as Archons were getting out of the way for the Zealots to get to the front and everything. As soon as he went for the big warp in, though, that I think it was a little bit behind on, it was like, oh, actually, yes, this does just start to overwhelm everything. Yeah, if that had gone on a little bit longer, though, I definitely could see, like you were saying, Disruptor comes out, gets a big shot on some of the Zealots, the Archons had already been taken care of. Like, yeah, maybe some magic happens there, but it was still going to be a bit of an ask.
I was ready for it, man. I was like, it's happening, it's happening. Not quite, but one can dream, one can dream. Next map up, 2,000 atmospheres. Nice big map, Fear Dragon. I do actually believe in the potential of seeing like a good long game getting into Disruptors, maybe going to Sky Toss. But the thing with this map is it's nice and large, but sometimes people just plant down that proxy gateway. Boom, game is over just like that as well, right? So power of PvP is that there's very little defender's advantage outside of the shield battery. So those reinforcements showing up so quick can be pretty darn good early game. A lot of that depends on what these guys decide to do. If they decide to try and expand early and stuff as well, that changes a lot of what their opponents can do as well. So we will see very soon as we're counting on down. 2,000 atmospheres from map 2. Hellraiser leads it 1-0.
Yeah, something I just realized, Wardy, is actually I've seen many of the PvPs like go to that late game Sky Toss army. A player has like the carriers and everything get out. I'm curious, you watch more StarCraft than probably any human being on the planet right now.
PvP though.
Like, do you, one thing I feel like I haven't seen as much of, or I see very rarely, is that both players are on Sky Toss. Usually I feel like it's one player gets to the Sky Toss and the other player is like, ah, shit, blink stalkers, try and do something, like make something happen, run around the map, be mobile.
Yeah, obviously it happens. It happens the other way around a lot, though, right? It's like one player is basically ahead, but you can't attack in because they've got disruptors. So you're just like, right, well, I'm just going to build Sky Toss, right? And the other guy's like, oh, I was just surviving. And that's why you see that a lot of the time. I mean, obviously it's possible. I think Skillet's Garrett played a super long game yesterday. The thing is, when they both go to Sky Toss, it's that 40+ minute kind of game. Like, once you start both going there, you're kind of committed there. As I'll do the intros and stop holding our observer in suspense. In the bottom left-hand side, our blue Protoss player, up 1-0, is Hellraiser.
Up here in the top right-hand side of the map, the red Protoss player from Team Litecoin, he is ShaDoWn.
Well, you know, you put so much on that initial push in that last game, ShaDoWn, to try and take down the third. You don't get it. He was kind of meant to be behind from there. Upgrades had a big role to play in it. And we'll see what he does this time. Last time, it was close, right? Like, he nearly got that third. And if you get rid of that third base, you come out ahead on workers. It's actually, like, it's a really good position for you, sure. But it put so much on that one attack.
It did.
See if he'll do something similar again, or if he'll play it a little bit safer and more standard. Group standards to the right-hand side. These two are fighting to be at the top of the group, by the way, with a group where it's kind of been, you know, a bit of a mess all the way throughout, right? You know, Cyril's doing great, Marine Lord's doing very well, but Lambo losing those first two matches, I think it's that Lambo Soul DNS kind of triangle. Lambo lost to Soul, Soul lost to DNS, and DNS lost to Lambo, and it's caused a lot of chaos in this Group D.
It really has, and especially when it's a group where there's only 3 spots to advance out because Cyril just kind of gets one, right? Like, Cyril just kind of gets a spot at this point, right? I think we just assume it now, but it's definitely a tough group in terms of there's a lot of players who I think are relatively even in skill level, and it's already kind of showcased by the fact that it is the only group where everyone has won at least a series already. Every other group has had at least one player that has yet to win a series so far.
I know. I love that about this group, though. Like, I feel like that's fantastic. I always think it's really cool.
When that does happen, though, it also leads into some really, really wonky stuff later on, where basically that means that, like, oftentimes some of the people who are advancing out with, like, a losing score. Like, they've lost more series than they've won, but they have, like, this triple tiebreaker situation for, like, 4th place.
That's the beauty of round robin, man. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh yeah, it is great, but I also know that I'm working the last day of the group, so I have to decipher that absolute.
Oh, you have to do the figuring out. Oh yeah, it sucks, man.
A lot of adepts over here, and I was actually making a reference about the big adept plays in PvP and how they have kind of faded out, but well, it's kind of this weird situation where the adepts can be great on the offensive, and they can also chase down once you have more adepts and your opponent has stalkers. That's exactly what he's going to try and do over here. He's going to try and focus fire down some of these stalkers, but I just don't think there's enough over here. This has not been working out for Hellraiser at all so far.
No, not really getting much of anything done. These stalkers are putting on some pressure, and ShaDoWn is going to show up and put on even more pressure. Adepts get blocked on the other side too. This Nexus might just go down. What's even up on the high ground right now?
Dead.
Sentries.
You can't save it anymore, right? Like, there's no way. 2 warp gates worth of warping in?
Yeah. There's just not. I mean, he just has the units on the high ground. Like, the only good thing about the units on the high ground is the sentries could force field these stalkers in half if they try to push up. So the good news is that you can't lose more than just your base. I mean, these adepts are allowed forwards, but then they get stuck a little bit. There's a battery, so only one adept means only damage that gets healed up, basically.
Well, Morty, I've seen games that have begun better than this for Hellraiser.
Yeah, I know.
I'll keep it friendly on that one.
This is not a pretty one. I mean,
there has been at least one game that has gone better than this for Hellraiser.
What's the last one?
The last one, and maybe a few others. This is definitely a disaster right now for Hellraiser. He is absolutely playing from pretty far behind, and it's pretty much on him to make this magical play happen where he's getting up a robotics bay. And do you think this is for the Colossus to knock out crystals, or is this like disruptors?
Gotta be a disruptor, right?
Yeah.
You get the Prism out, you get I mean, you could Colossus in one base, Immortal Colossus all in. I just feel there's more value in hoping on the Disruptor shot than anything else.
100% with you on that. I think when behind, it's important to remember that if you just play absolutely standard, unless you feel you are supremely better than your opponent, and you could just like, the longer the game goes on, the more it favors you, playing around units that are playmaker units and can get big value, high risk, high reward is a really, really important thing to consider and factor in. That Hallucinate Phoenix is probably gonna have a pretty good idea of what's going on because he's seen the robotics bay.
Yep. Yeah, RoboBay coming through with that Disruptor now. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is kind of the obvious thing as well. Like, you kind of expect this as ShaDoWn. I think that's why he's pushing, because he's like, you know what, one Disruptor, manageable, right? Dangerous to fight, but manageable. And I think that's what's very important about this. So I can kind of get behind it and see where we go to.
Yeah, wouldn't mind if ShaDoWn, when he gets up the gas for it, starts a blink or something. Just because he is pretty stalker heavy on his composition. He's got up the Twilight Council and everything, and there it is. Yeah, as soon as it gets up 150 gas, starts up that blink. Gonna be pretty helpful in dealing with disruptors if he gets up past that single disruptor count. But looks like we're just sticking with one and a straight up disruptor drop. No blink to worry about. Oh my God! All right, that's a pretty good shot.
I mean, that's one heck of a way to start bringing yourself back into this a little bit. Get some more shots like that, and we really are talking. I mean, obviously ShaDoWn, like you said, just blinking, Nexusing, everything kind of makes sense from him. But yeah, like, I mean, you take shots like that and it doesn't really matter as much. So you gotta be careful. I honestly kind of like the idea of when he was pushing initially. I really felt there was like good potential there to get something decent out of it. So I'm kind of sad that he stopped with that idea. I felt like that was actually a good direction to be going in.
Yeah, it's also important to note that Hellraiser probably doesn't have a perfect idea of exactly when Blink is going to finish up there for ShaDoWn, just because the Twilight Council had finished up for a little bit for ShaDoWn, but he had invested into like other units and other like tech and stuff first. So it's entirely possible in his mind that Blink is pretty much finished up, which is a very reasonable reason why he's already backed off quite a bit with the Warp Prism. Otherwise, I think, yeah, he would be still gunning for like that other Immortal that he got softened up and some of these Stalkers and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. As we do just have ourselves an army of ShaDoWn kind of moving forward that little bit. I mean, Hellraiser is going to start his own third. He's just, I mean, the thing is, again, it's that army difference or that army supply difference. And you can really see the army supply difference. It's just a Disruptor makes it scary to attack. But if he's got the blink, right? I know he'd be blinking on top of Immortals, but you just blink for the Disruptor, right? And then you just have free reign to win this game, basically. He's not confident about it just yet. There is the Prism to save the Disruptor too, so he's going to be a little bit more methodical than I was suggesting, which is fine. That also can work out for sure.
Yeah, I do feel like he is at the Stalker count now where he could blink on top of the Disruptor and then right-click down the Immortals also after, but could just go for a force field on that ramp over there. Adept is trying to get some damage done, counter damage done on the other side of the map. Not getting a whole lot just yet, but we'll eventually start working away at those probes.
Yeah, I mean, 3 work is better than nothing at all. The thing is, ShaDoWn, I like how he's playing it, right? Because he says, what have I done here? Oh, I've stopped him getting a third base. What else do I need to do here? Actually, right now, nothing. If he doesn't have a third base, I'm ahead. I just need to make sure nothing happens. Obviously, he needs to not take damage from TTs, right? But
yeah,
I like that he just takes a moment to say, okay, I'm good.
I'm with you. It's just, there's one thing that I'm a little afraid of, is that the longer this game goes on, and as you can already see, Disruptor production is beginning again. It's that number that you were talking about, like 1 Disruptor or 2 Disruptor, even 2 Disruptors, not necessarily the end of the world. Once you start getting up to like 3, 4 Disruptors, it's like, actually now I can't just blink in and focus fire them down. Like there is an opportunity for my opponent to outplay me for like 5 to 10 seconds. And suddenly it's not like they're starting to come back. It's like they're back in the game in like 5 to 10 seconds when you get up to that Disruptor count. But I do agree with what you're saying. It does just require like a little bit of tightrope walking.
That's the thing though, right? Like players at this level, they believe in themselves, right? They're like, well, I shouldn't win this game if I can't believe that I won't mess it up. And sometimes that seems like a silly way to play, but they have more faith in being able to continue doing the right thing them, over a longer period of time than doing than maybe putting yourself in a riskier position super quickly. Like some people go for it. They believe full on their micro in that moment can be good enough. But some people are just like, you know what? I feel more confident that over time, I'm going to make more right decisions than potentially just one wrong decision right now. I mean, ShaDoWn still just having to deal with these disruptors. I mean, he's on his way to his own Robobay. But yeah, you kind of like to see, I don't know, see at this stage, I'd like to see him maybe just go Stargates and Phoenix into carriers. Because he can use the Phoenix to lift disruptors. I feel like he's just that far ahead. He could maybe do that. Going disruptors yourself feels like it's not complicated per se. It's just you're going to be behind on disruptors, so how much do you really gain from it? I guess you can still deny the third base and stuff. That's a good disruptor shot.
As is that one. Oh boy, supply's starting to even out quite a bit over here, Wardy, and even though Warp Prism actually got pushed back, there's a lot of charge loss that got warped in. I think those are actually going to be quite helpful over here, since those charge loss get in on top of the stalkers. You can't really fire the disruptor shot onto your own stalkers very easily. We're starting to see the disruptors start to get focus firing down. And gradually, slowly but surely, it does seem like ShaDoWn is starting to break through. Not able to get the Nexus or anything over here, though.
Oh, disruptor shot again. Oh, no, come on. ShaDoWn, what's going on? It's the disruptors. Man, you know what, FearDragon, when I was talking a bit before, I didn't really quite realize how high that disruptor count was again. Yeah. You're right. I actually hate that he didn't do more. Because at first I was stuck in this mindset of like, well, there's one disruptor, right? I was like, well, he's making a second one. Yeah, but now there's just too many disruptors.
I'll tell you why I have such a strong opinion about it in that sense, and why I brought it up is because I've watched Estrella versus Neeb so many times now that I've seen this happen so many times.
Yeah, no, I feel like this was 100% a situation where ShaDoWn should have believed a little bit sooner. But to be fair, when he was still denying the third base, I kind of was still behind that. Yeah, I mean, then he stopped denying it, and suddenly there's more disruptors up. Then he started to try and fight the army instead of just denying the base, right? Because this started with him pushing into the natural. Then he pulled away to the third, but by then he'd already taken so many shots, and then he took more. If he just started on the third base, the disruptors have to come that much further forward to begin with, and that immediately becomes an issue.
I agree, actually. I think that's actually a really good point, and it's still definitely not over by any means. One disruptor shot from either side can still really change the tide of battle, and it is going to change the tide of battle in favor of Hellraiser in a lot of ways, as even the stalkers are starting to get taken out, as they do already use their blink pretty early on, but the charge lots still trying to break on through. The shield battery overcharged, putting in some serious work. Hellraiser, he's going to lose a lot of his disruptors. Is this just the breaking point?
Oh, I mean, is there ever a breaking point? I mean, the Zealot count is actually kind of crazy, because the Zealots are going to start putting in work if they can avoid those disruptors. There goes the third base again, and that means ShaDoWn will finally bring it home. You can see he's like, his reaction on camera is kind of like my reaction. I'm like, oh my god, you did it! But just about, in the end, it took a little while, didn't it? That was a thriller of a PvP, and maybe all of the wrong ways, FearDragon. I don't feel like it was meant to be that exciting. I'm glad it was. I feel like it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to something I said at the very beginning of this series, Wardy. PvP is a really fun matchup to watch and a very stressful matchup to play, because there are so many gotchas. There are so many gotchas you have to be on the lookout for. And I feel like we just watched 3 of those gotchas happen in 8 seconds. Where a bounce back and forth, but it finally went back to ShaDoWn. And I'm happy that we get a game 3, and I'm also happy for ShaDoWn, because that would have been a really, really rough game to have lost. And I also want to say something else, which is I don't even necessarily know if ShaDoWn to close out that series earlier on, I don't even know necessarily what the perfect play would have been there. It is a really, really tough call. I think he made the best decision, like you were saying, believing himself that he could at the time. And in the end, thankfully, he doesn't have to think back and look at that decision with any kind of regret, because he does come out ahead in the end.
I think when he first pushed with that blink, and I was talking about blinking on the disruptor, I feel like he could have just stepped forward more aggressively. He went forward, saw the disruptor, and was like, whoa. But he has blink, right? And it's only one disruptor, and I feel like that's a situation where you go forward more aggressively, you force the disruptor shot, and then even if you back away, you then still know when the disruptor shot is back, right? So it gives you a timeline to work with. So I feel like that maybe could have been an opportunity just to make it a lot easier. I mean, it would have been a bit risky perhaps, but I still stand by the idea of maybe just blinking in there, kill the disruptor, or if it lifts in the prism, you're going to one-shot the prism anyway. Yes, there's 2 immortals, but maybe that's why you don't, and maybe that's why you just take the step forward. Either way, I felt like that was perhaps a bigger opportunity than we saw. Alas, you know what? It worked out for ShaDoWn at the end, even if it did get a little bit stressful. Hopefully he's able to calm it down after that victory, because I'm sure his heart was racing. As in the bottom left-hand side, tying it up 1-1. Our Red Protoss player is ShaDoWn.
And up here on the top side of the map, we have the blue Protoss player from Team Litecoin. He is Hellraiser. By the way, Wardy, there are just so many great jokes and references you can make about both of their names. It's like Hellraiser versus ShaDoWn, like they're opposites in that sense. SHA is also an encryption algorithm that's commonly used in Litecoin is a crypto, so you could say it's like an crypto SHA. There's the Dow Jones, which is also like kind of like investment stuff, and Litecoin is like crypto. There's just too many jokes. I can't even pick one.
You had me at the start and I was like, oh, that's clever, and then you continued and I was like, I've got no idea what's going on anymore. So I'm just like, I'm nodding and being like, yeah.
Oh, don't worry. That's what listening to me usually is.
Yeah, to be. That was my next.
Yeah,
joke.
I mean, yeah. I'm glad you've known me long enough that you acknowledge that. You know, by the way, Wordy, we have not. I think it's been a while since we've commentated together.
Yeah.
Maybe like Katowice actually, and even before that, I remember. I think it's been a while. We don't usually get paired up.
We not cast last season? I guess not actually.
I don't think so. And I know this because every time we cast together, I always think back about how like the one you invited me on to cast a tournament with you on your channel once. And I remember just being so unbelievably loopy because I think I like didn't sleep at all that night. And I was just like, oh yeah, well, I was pretty off the rails. So no wonder Wardy never wanted to cast with me again. I just see Wardy giving his feedback at the end of a season, like in the little feedback Google surveys, like, please don't pair me with this guy again, ever again.
Wow, dude, I would never write such things. Wow, that's crazy that I invited you on in the first place. I never invite anyone to cast with me.
I know it was. I think it was actually. It may have been not when you were running the Team Liquid map contest stuff, but it might have been like when you were covering one of them. Because I remember us having a very, very delirious time talking about bridges.
Bridges.
I don't remember what, but we talked a lot about bridges that day.
I mean, and that's how you know it was a good day.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we do have another adept opening over here, but it is going to be followed up with stalkers. This is not the same craze that ShaDoWn was trying to go for in the last game, where it was just lots and lots of adepts getting ready to move across the map. But it is also a 3 sentry opening over here from ShaDoWn, nice and early on. So he's going to have lots of sentry energy, really keep tabs on his opponent. That's going to be a big part of what ShaDoWn is hoping for, is that he can have full vision and full clarity on what he should be doing in this game.
Yeah, these adepts going to try and shade through again. Obviously, battery goes up, no surprises there. I like that we're both going Twilight once more. They're clearly comfortable playing Blink, so sticking to that, it'll be fun. And this time a Forge from either side. This is kind of the game one I wanted, I think. You know, the Twilight and Forge on both sides, rather than ShaDoWn trying that attack on the third base with no upgrade. So, kind of happy that we might get to see this play out a little bit, because we've not really seen a game play out with the proper kind of just heading into like macro without one player getting behind. So I kind of like, especially with how crazy that last game was. Although with that last game having played out, I worry a little bit for ShaDoWn, because now I'm like, well, Hellraiser was pretty convincing, even though he was meant to be dead, dead and buried already. So maybe then I worry a bit more for ShaDoWn if it does go kind of late in a more normal setting. But maybe in a game where he's just, more even, he kind of has it all together a little bit more, right? He's not stressing out as much in terms of like, gotta end the game, I'm so far ahead, why can't I win? Because sometimes being ahead like that and then not being able to win stresses you out more than just being behind would be, right?
That is very true. And I think that is very much demonstrated with some of the cases. I don't think the last game's a good example of it as a nice set of force fields. This is something you can do when you have 3 centuries worth of energy to utilize. But yeah, I feel like that has definitely been demonstrated in series before when someone is clearly behind and probably going to lose, but you just stick in the game and draw it out. And then you see the next game, the person who was ahead the previous game is just like so burnt out at that point that they start making more mistakes. Yeah, I think that absolutely does happen.
This game, Robo is the difference. Just a little bit faster from Hellraiser, but not really going to do much. Starts an observer a bit sooner, so maybe that becomes a difference in the game, but not super convinced that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be pretty even across the board, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of fun. Something I'm always really curious about is that I feel like there's a lot of players who primarily practice on the ladder, right? And then when you practice on the ladder, you're not really picking what race you're going to play. So a lot of players will be like, well, I'm just going to veto peck it. So then I always wonder, like, when you start facing like a PvP, I wonder about specific players that mostly practice on the ladder. I'm like, do you have a lot of like PvP builds and like knows all the little ins and outs of playing PvP on this map?
Is that what you wonder at night?
That's what I wonder about when I try to go to sleep at night. Those are the questions that keep me up.
I'm living in the world of a PvP lover, huh?
I do love PvP.
It is a fascinating matchup. Like, it's genuinely like so wild that people can have a consistency in this matchup to me because of what we talked about earlier and stuff, and just how much there is to do and how many ways there are to play and ways in which everything can happen. It's it's really fascinating to me in that regard.
Yeah, it's like we were saying before, diversity is the key name, and we're finally seeing a bit of diversity in this particular game as the players have finally changed up what some of their plans are. Hellraiser is going to be adding on that dark shrine, a kind of nice little spot inside that natural. I say nice spot, but it's a nice spot assuming that these adepts don't finish their shade. Okay, and they don't, shouldn't, but yeah, ShaDoWn's going for the more normal round of charge and immortals.
Yeah, some people really like to get this Dark Shrine early. I know Geralt is someone who really likes Dark Shrine first, like a lot of the time. Like, he goes for it all of the time. And it's like, at one point you're like, whoa, this is actually just your macro build. And it's like, yeah, and I love getting Shadow Stride and stuff. Dude, and that's what they play around.
I will actually always credit Geralt as being the only person I know before me who went hard on Dark Templar Shadow Stride for base trades. That man is the only person I know of who really dug in deeper on it than I did before I did, where it was just, he had like a style in every matchup where he would mass up a lot of Blink Stalkers, get up a handful of Dark Templar with Blink, and he would just literally wait for his opponent to do any kind of move out and then initiate base trades. It was a sick style. But yeah, I think that he feels very comfortable and confident with those Dark Templar for sure.
Which is really cool. Now, let's see what Hellraiser can do with them. He takes 4th base, as does ShaDoWn. We'll get into a little bit of a macro PvP here, if you're talking.
Yeah, no kidding. The DTs have not really been able to play too much of an impact just yet. There's no cannons or anything at that natural, so it is going to be an open way. But I don't even hate that Hellraiser is kind of playing it back a little bit and chilling for a little while, because if he hits in at the same time that he pokes forward the rest of his army, that is when he can really start getting a lot of damage done, because PvP engagements do take up quite a bit of your attention.
Yeah, they really do. You cannot really look away for like more than like the fastest of seconds, right? Because if you look away for more than the time it takes a disruptor to land in your face, well, yeah, we know how that goes.
Oh, get out of there.
Was taking some damage. I like that he actually was going to leave them all, and then he was like, actually, I'll leave one just in case there isn't an observer. I feel like that's a worthwhile commitment. Like, it's like the cost of 1 DT just in case the observer doesn't show up is really, really nice. The ShaDoWn being chased all over the place by DTs. A lot of probes going down, but he's got a substantial army lead, and that's after Hellraiser just popped a warp in. So definitely a bit of a difference between the two of them at the moment here. See how it continues on in the next few.
Yeah, keep in mind, Hellraiser is very, very committed to a mobile army, though, right? He doesn't have the Immortals. He does have the Disruptors starting to come out, but he's only got that singular Disruptor out right now. He's making a second one. He needs to do these kind of little run by, hit and run kind of tactics, because if it came to a straight up fight, he's up against a ton of charge lots and a ton of Immortals. His army is not going to hold its weight.
DC show up once again, man. Just going to be very annoying here, there, and everywhere. That's the whole point of them. As DC Hellraiser trying to use this mobility of the Stalkers as well. So it's just a hyper mobile army right now. And behind it, he's getting into a set of Disruptors. And it really is like 30 Stalkers too. So in a straight up fight, I don't really like it until these Disruptors were out, because obviously Zealots can start to overwhelm. Like, there's a point of Stalkers where it's like you're only building more in these situations, because it's like, well, you know, because I only want mobility rather than them actually being decent to have. So that's kind of the point at which we've reached.
I think there is a bit of a dangerous point where I don't mind Hellraiser not making any DTs to turn into Archons just yet, because ShaDoWn hasn't tried moving out or anything super far just yet, but I am a little bit worried that he's going to miss his opportunity. Like, ShaDoWn's just going to have this moment where he does a nice cleanup on some of the DTs or something, does the move out, and Hellraiser doesn't have any Archons to help out versus the massive number of charge lots that are out. That is one small concern I have about Hellraiser, but it hasn't come up yet.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game, actually. The kind of style he's playing just naturally is got a lot of stuff that can go wrong with it. Disruptor shots being one of them. No, ShaDoWn! How did the Disruptor survive? I don't know, but does it matter when all the Stalkers went down? Wow, Hellraiser, talk about delivering a strike. That was really something.
It is definitely going to help out quite a bit. And, well, ShaDoWn's trying to catch up with his own Disruptors, so we're never going to count out anyone that is making lots of Disruptors. But there's that good old Shadow Stride upgrade. Wardy, I mean, Dark Templar in late game PvP, let me tell you something. It's just so tough, because once you get 4 DTs up, you can deal with cannons and stuff, and you have to commit more supply than there are DTs to clean them up and not take a lot of damage. There's actually just no other way around that.
Yep, it's like incredibly powerful, actually. I know the feel in PvT when they throw 10 DTs at my base. I'm like, well, A, I'm going to lose the planetary, and B, I'm going to have to send 30 supply here to then kill 1 DT before they blink away. So yeah, trust me, I understand. I get the pain. No, it's a very powerful way of playing. As this attack of Hellraiser, of ShaDoWn, sorry, does not do much on this base of Hellraiser. I was kind of expecting it to do a little bit more, honestly.
He had an Observer, but I guess maybe he was a little worried about running the Observer in, maybe because of attention, like APM available and stuff. He was afraid that he would run the Observer into the cannon. That recall, okay.
Decent catch, really. Was there a Disruptor shot flying there too? I mean, this was just chaotic. I mean, attack on the right side, attack on the left side as well. Hellraiser gets a good jump on the left side. Under low attack units, he's obviously distracted for a moment, walks into that Disruptor shot he could have dodged a little bit better from. So that's maybe a minor complaint. There's more Disruptor shots coming through.
Yeah, it's almost like a base trade, except one of the players is actually killing a base and the other one isn't right now.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's coming at a big cost right here. The Disruptors are vulnerable, but the Nexus hasn't actually died yet. Okay. He's backed off because, Observer's there.
Oh man, this game's getting more intense, isn't it? What a way to duel on Beckett. I love what the Hellraiser's doing, though. He's got so many Stalkers, and he knows it, and he goes for the grab, but ShaDoWn, the couple force fields, bought him a couple moments, and those couple moments made such a world of difference, and he's actually able to turn out of there and actually just keep so many of those units alive, and I was kind of just assuming they were dead. Like, I didn't think they were going to be saved at all, but I was very, very wrong.
Me neither. And we have the Stalkers on the hunt right now. They're going to back off right now. Really quickly before the engagement starts, can we get a shot at the bottom right and how closely these two players have expanded to each other? Just like they're literally right next to each other. And I think, Hellraiser's going to take advantage of that. He's going to be like, well, this is your freshest base. You also have a Robo over here and your Robo Bay. Disruptor almost goes off on that, on all of the Disruptors of ShaDoWn. Oh, this is actually such a dangerous game. Both of the Disruptors are all on the north side, but Hellraiser doesn't have any coverage for his Disruptors.
Okay, well, who can watch the most places at the same time? That's the question we're asking now. Disruptors there means ShaDoWn will not try and go further. Hellraiser realizes he's probably pushing his luck as well, especially because ShaDoWn is bringing this army back. Uh-oh, Hellraiser, what are we going to do? Maybe blink to the bottom right and try and... Oh, he flanked the disruptors and he killed them all!
Oh my god!
Whoa, they're just at the top of the screen and they just all blew up. And I was like, well, I guess that's how you get out of there, Hellraiser. ShaDoWn did not see that coming in the slightest. And that is going to be his army melted. Hellraiser. Wow. And those were the disruptors that he left at home initially. And he was like, right, I need them to get my army home safely. So that's an amazing call.
Unbelievably good connection there. I mean, we've seen 70 army supply lead right now. The Zealots and DT is going to try and do a little bit of a run by. Might be able to get a bit of a snag over here and even up a little bit of that supply, even just buying a bit of time. But Hellraiser is actually the one buying time over here because his army's moving into the other bottom base. This is, oh my god, this is just actually nuts. I cannot believe Hellraiser has made this work like this.
I thought it was difficult to fit more base trades into a series than Soul DNS yesterday. And now we've got more base trades in one map than we've had in that entire series. As once again, away we go. I mean, I think Hellraiser obviously has the natural advantage at the moment in this, so just really needs to kind of keep it going. Disruptors are just blowing up wherever they can, trying to clean up whatever's possible. I mean, even still though, right? It's just going to be, I mean, is that all the disruptors of the game? There's only one disruptor on the map and it's ShaDoWn's. The thing is, just one disruptor doesn't make the difference, and that's the sad reality at the moment of where this game's going to end.
The economy is absolutely going to start coming into effect here. There's still mining bases for one of the players, and there's no mining bases for the other one right now. ShaDoWn has hardly just got that natural expansion mining, and that's all he's got going for him, as well as a far inferior army supply. All right, one disruptor in the brush. Getting hit a massive chunk of the Stalkers, but even the DTs are too much right now, Wardy.
Yeah, I mean, Stalkers just, like I said earlier, there's a point at Stalkers where their strength is mobility, not being an army, right? And this game has absolutely gone past that moment. Okay,
but imagine if that disruptor gets 2 more shots.
Well, if this one gets 2 more shots, there's a new one. That was exciting.
Okay, actually, Wardy, I will say, with even how bad everything is, 2 maximum surface area disruptor shots, I think that brings ShaDoWn, brings ShaDoWn back in this.
I can see it, but surely it just doesn't.
Surely it couldn't happen.
Surely it can't happen, but that's the famous last words, especially in a PvP like this one. As once again, I mean, it wouldn't be this game without another base trade, and this time the DTs get blown up as they try to kill disruptors. So all the DTs
there's a
just
third
died.
disruptor somewhere.
Yeah, there is one in the back. Robo's going to go down though, right? And that means no more disruptors to build. And meanwhile, Hellraiser is taking damage on his own natural. He has still just maintained such a huge lead since that point where that massive disruptor connection happened. And that's definitely been the game changer in this.
Yeah, the Stalkers just cannot do enough damage. I like the idea of focusing down the pylons and stuff, just because pylons can prevent additional warpins and stuff. The Nexus can prevent the recall, but there's just too many things you have to actually go after, and Stalker's getting surrounded and picked off. I think that ShaDoWn is probably coming to terms with this situation right now, realizing there's just a little bit too much out there for me to deal with. My opponent is doubling my Stalker count, and I guess he's gonna hang in there until he loses all of his disruptors. And you know what? Given how crazy this game has gone, I don't even blame him for it.
You saying until the very end, right? It's a crazy enough game that you just never know. It's hard to tell maybe exactly where you're at. And hey, disruptors, if there's ever a unit to stay in the game with, I will always stand by the fact that it's probably the disruptors. So how about it, ShaDoWn? Make some magic happen for the sake of our entertainment.
He's hiding in the brush.
Yeah, I mean, he's played that trick before.
He's got one more shot. Oh, but it's too far out.
Kills his own Stalker. No. The traitor. GG. Wow, what a series, Spear Dragon. Could not complain about this.